What's going on, folks? Backer here. Your friend Derek. Super Bowl, a week and a half away. Very exciting. In my opinion, it wasn't the number one Super Bowl the NFL won. I think they won in Kansas City and San Francisco more than anything. But we are getting Kansas City. We are getting Philadelphia. This is an interesting game. It opened as a pick-em right away, and then within an hour, the Eagles were -2.5. And now it's hovering around 1.5. The Eagles are about 1.5 point favorite. This one's really tough, right? Because I think if these two teams played 100 times, I think the Eagles win about 60 to 65% of them. I really do. I think the Eagles are actually the better team. But again, I mean, this is why we love sports, because you never know what's going to happen. I don't love any. I mean, you can't love anything in this match, I think. I know you're big on Philadelphia, and we'll get into that. But it's very hard to love something, I feel like. Though I do think it could either be, if one team's going to blow another team out, in my opinion, I think it's going to be Philly blowing out Kansas City. But if the game is close, I do believe that Kansas City is going to win the game. Here's what's interesting, right? And I hate to say this. You can call a flag on anything. I'm going to tell you right now, the NFL wanted Kansas City to beat Cincinnati. They did everything they could to make sure Kansas City won that game. I mean, me having a big position on Kansas City in that game, Cincinnati got robbed. They were the better team in that game.
Yeah.
And Burrow is in my opinion, just an unbelievable quarterback. So I'm gonna say Kansas City's actually, I think they're gonna win the game.
My stance is this: if everybody remembers, a few years back, Kansas City played Tampa in the Super Bowl, and I think the injuries is going to be a huge determining factor. I feel like the Eagles are firing on all cylinders, whereas I feel Kansas City's kind of limping into this one like they did against Tampa. If you remember, Kansas City got blown out by Brady and the Bucs, 31-9. They didn't even score a touchdown. There's only ever been 2 times that a team has not scored a touchdown, I believe. No, three times in Super Bowl history, and that was one of them. Another one was the Rams against Brady. We talk about getting robbed. The Saints got robbed that year. Should have been the Saints and
the flag. The pass interference.
Yes,
that didn't get,
exactly.
I remember.
So you talk about getting robbed. The Saints got robbed. They should have played Brady in that Super Bowl. But I think, opening, everybody's betting Philly. I think now people are like, oh, Mahomes is a little healthier. They get 2 weeks off instead of 1 week off, which is obviously huge going into the Super Bowl. Kelsey is a little dinged up. The guy could still have 10 to 15 catches at any given moment, of course. But I'm looking at Philly, and of course, Purdy, they got hurt. They were a wounded duck basically after the first quarter of that game. Philly never really had to put their best foot forward to finish that game off. They did let them linger around for a little bit, and then they took control of the game. I'm really interested to see Mahomes' mobility in the beginning of this game. I'm interested to see this defense for Kansas City. They had a guy, I believe, Snead got hurt in the most recent in the AFC Championship game. They have a lot of other guys that are hurt. I feel Philly blows them out. I'm actually taking a huge position on Philly. I'm taking Philly on the adjusted line. I am going to take them to win by 14 or more at a huge price. I might see a repeat of a Super Bowl a couple years back where Kansas City just comes in as a wounded duck. And I hate to see it, because in the Super Bowl, for about a 10-year stretch, we were very spoiled. We had close game after close game after close game after close game. Then we had that Super Bowl with, I believe it was the Broncos and the Panthers, which was just a complete annihilation. And then recently we had the Bucs, and that was a complete annihilation of Kansas City. But we've been very fortunate to have amazing Super Bowl matchups, which that's what you're supposed to get. It's always the 2 best teams, but I think Philly stomps them.
It's interesting because I'll tell you, watching the Kansas City game, Cincinnati, you know what I was most impressed by in that entire game? Kansas City's defense.
Yes.
They
did show up.
They did look really good, and they didn't look that good the week before.
Mm-hmm.
So when they played Jacksonville, they didn't have the defense they had against Cincinnati. So it's tough to say. I do agree. I think if one team is going to blow out another team, I think it's going to be Philadelphia. But again, it's a big moment for Hurts. Mahomes, I know he's been in the league since 17. He's really only played 4 seasons. But I'm going to tell you right now, the NFL wants Kansas City to win this game. And at the end of the day, if it's close, you don't know what's going to happen. You could talk about the Super Bowl against Tampa. Let's talk about the Super Bowl against San Francisco, where Kansas. That was another game where the refs did everything they can to have Kansas City win that game. I'm telling, and I believe in that stuff. I really do, because I had a big position on Kansas City. They were not the better team that day. So I think, again, it's early in Mahomes' career. I think the NFL wants him to win at least 4 or 5 Super Bowls over the course of the next 15 plus years. I mean, Mahomes is the best quarterback in football. He will win MVP. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a great game. And, like I said, I think the line is, I think people got a little scared at 2.5. I think people were like, there's value there at Kansas City at plus 2.5. And now you're seeing it at 1.5. I believe before this at game time, you might see a pick. You might actually see the game go to a complete pick.
I don't think you'll see it. 3 is just such a key number. It's not going to get to 3 by any stretch of the imagination. It would take.
I think you're
crazy.
You're seeing 1.5 right now. I think you're going to start seeing a little 1. But then usually, and I've noticed this in years past when I take positions, day of, there's a lot of, that's when the big guys come in, they pound it. So day of, you might just see a ton of money come in on Kansas. Because I've talked to a lot of sharps, and half of them are on Philly and half are on Kansas City. And they're both really smart people. So half the guys think the Eagles are going to blow them out, and the other half think Kansas City is just going to win the game. So that's kind of where I'm going with it. Like I said, if this was a game in a regular season, if they played 100 times, I think Philadelphia wins 60 to 65 of those games. But this is one game. This is one moment that's bigger than every other moment in the world. And Hurts has never been there before. So we'll see what he does. Because I'm going to tell you right now, watching Philly play San Francisco, I was not impressed by Hurts. And he looked nervous. He didn't want to really throw the ball. When he did throw the ball, he wasn't, his long pass, they weren't getting there. And the thing with both of these quarterbacks, people were hating on Purdy. Purdy, they make mistakes. That's huge as a quarterback. Josh Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, they make mistakes. They're great, but they make mistakes. Like Purdy, I think, threw 1 or 2 picks in all of his games. Like turnovers is such a big thing in the NFL. It's such a big swing. So we will see going into the Super Bowl. Like I said, if I had to choose, it's tough. I'm going to go Kansas City in a very close game. Derek's taking Philly in a adjusted line, and he thinks it's going to be a 14-plus
blowout.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks. This is it's exciting stuff.